Hello, everyone. This is Alex Tremble, and this is the conclusion of the Rhonda Binda Esquire interview.
So we've been talking about mentoring for a while. And I have one more question, if you don't mind me kind of diving into this. You mentioned a fourth bucket. You mentioned about finding a mentor who is different than you. So you said female mentors versus male mentors, mentors who have different interests in you, sports versus art. I have to ask you. It is difficult. I think it's more difficult for women, especially women of color, to rise into these leadership positions. And can I ask you your opinion? How, again, as a woman of color, how did you go about, and how difficult was it to find a mentor who now is in alignment with you, who can help you rise and challenge you and so on and so forth?
Right, and so the advice that you get from people who are more experienced and are mentors of yours, they have their own paths as well, and you do have to take what they say with a grain of salt because times are different perhaps than when they were climbing that ladder themselves. But I would say that you can seek out those that you think maybe had to face some of the similar paths that you might be looking at down the road, and use the tools, use LinkedIn, go to networking events. There are affinity groups that use your alumni networks. You do have to work hard and to find those matches, and there's never a perfect person because everyone has a different destiny. But I will say the numbers right now of women in senior leadership are actually declining.
Really?
Which is quite alarming. And so I think that in addition to what we're talking about and encouraging everyone individually, that there needs to be policies. So if you look, I just came back from Eastern Europe, and if you look around the world, Eastern Europe is actually has some of the best percentages of women in leadership, and about 87% of their companies you'll see women leaders there. The US, we've been in somewhat of a decline, and I think we've gone from according to Forbes, 6% to 5% of women in senior and CEO roles in Fortune 500, and so we're at a time when we think that because of technology that we can be more transparent with our data, and it may not matter as much who's perhaps sitting behind that that digital platform or computer, but we're not seeing this actually play out in the actual numbers. And so policy wise, I do think that we already know that you are more successful as an organization by having a more diverse workforce. And so particularly for women, I do think that we need to look at this more structurally and look at the policies. And one of the things I learned in Eastern Europe, which was implemented in a university that saw that in the STEM field, there weren't as many women who were in leadership positions. They worked on policies to change that by putting women in leadership positions to build the pipeline. Because students were not seeing women in leadership positions, that they were not fully pursuing it. So it started from seeing that virtual mentor, like we're talking about, and that made all the difference. So we can learn from this, especially here in the U.S., these types of policies and programs. And there also seems to be what they call an ambition gap between men and women, where women maybe perhaps will go for more of the policy type of positions and not as much for the being that that number one top of the pyramid leader, because it's seen that in order to be in that role you have to have a superfluous amount of confidence and arrogance, which are traits often seen associated with men.
Sorry.
And the humble team player type is but what's interesting about that is that in fact when you look at successful leadership, there's an inverse relationship, and so those who have the arrogant attitude actually don't in fact wind up being better leaders than. And there is women are seen as also more into the relationships of and more of the nurturing role in leadership positions, whereas men are more task oriented. And again, in this technological age, we're going to see a lot of the tasks being automated and outsourced.
It's about
And so there is a great opportunity if we really focus on, again, changing the policies, providing that mentorship, strengthening the networks that women have, not just with each other, but with other male mentors. That we can try to close the gap, because unfortunately the gap is widening right now. And so there's we're entering an interesting time. But I honestly believe with technology, we can leverage it the right way to create stronger networks, like I said, using these virtual networks, these social media networks. And I have a quick story for you about that, around how a mentorship program that I have a quick story for you about how a mentorship program that has blossomed for young women in high school from simply a social media site that celebrated women from Guyana and Guyanese descent. And it grew to about 20,000 people. And from there, 2 years ago, we created a leadership academy for high school girls of Guyanese descent. And so by leveraging these virtual networks, you can then bring that into reality. And now we have these young women in classrooms, and they're just achieving amazing things. And we're able to give back in ways that I was lucky to receive scholarships and internships and opportunities for further education. But even in more ways now that we've, again, with technology that we have now that didn't exist, 20, 30 years ago.
One, the importance of action. We can know something's wrong. And it's okay to know it. And then we can decide we're going to change something, right? We're going to make a decision. But you got to do it. You got to act. You can't just know it. You can't decide you're going to move forward. You're going to change the system. You have to act. And I really appreciate what you've done, because you're acting. You're actually starting programs up. You're mentoring these young people, and you're growing that pipeline. And then so that's the second part I want to talk about, is that pipeline you talked about. Again, it's not always about what you have today, where you are today. You should always be positioning yourself for something greater, because success, greatness doesn't happen today. It happens tomorrow. And how you get to tomorrow is by what you do today. And so by you and all of you taking the time to invest in yourself, invest in others, building those pipelines, you're not only investing in yourself to hopefully push yourself to more senior level, more influential positions, but you're also creating that pipeline, that roadmap, that ability for people, for so many young people who need to be at the table to be able to fill those roles. So I had to say I really thank you for sharing those thoughts.
No, it's I appreciate the accolades, because I of course I very much agree that this is really the only way that we can start to reverse this terrible trend. And it's not good for business, it's not good for organizations, and I think that there's been some more awareness on some of the around Time's Up in Hollywood and Me Too, and this is brought and I almost feel as if there's been somewhat of a backlash. I really don't know how else to explain the decline. It's probably a combination. But I'm glad that at least we're opening up these conversations. But now, like you said, let's take action. Let's realize that there's a problem there. So we've done that. But the problem's getting deeper. And let's figure out ways that we can put women in leadership positions by building that pipeline, building their self-esteem and their confidence so that they go after those more ambitious roles. And realize that the qualities that women tend to have are actually better in the long term, in terms of how to be a leader and what qualities are rated as the most important for successful leadership. And so these are facts. We're just mistaking confidence for confidence still. And I think that if women can start to maybe wear that confidence, and start to believe it more, women themselves can start to buck the trend. Also, building stronger networks. I don't really say that men are supposed to be doing this work. It really should, that women should be stepping up to do this among each other and support each other. And support each other when to take risks and to be bold. So this, I see this happening, especially in my industry in technology, and in government. I see this happening probably more so there than some of the other industries that I work with, and so I feel very lucky and very proud.
So for those of you watching, I am going to provide in the description a book that actually talks a little bit about the quote unquote backlash to the Me Too movement, which I think is it's an Audible book. I'll have that in the description. I'm also going to be talking, I'll put a book down in the description, a great book for building that confidence. Because like you said, that's so critical, because the reality is we do have perceptions. If we see someone who looks confident, I was teaching a class this past week, and I told the class, it was on presenting and influencing individuals. And what I told them is that, look, here's the reality. If you walk on a stage and you act confident, most people are going to believe you. They're not going to ask questions. But if you walk on a stage and you're not confident, everyone gets real skeptical really quickly. And they're going to ask you and pepper you with more questions. So it's actually in your benefit to just look confident. And you position yourself much better, much safer position if you're just simply confident. So I'm going to put that book down in the description.
Love that explanation.
Yeah, I'm always about influencing people. Again, this is something we all have been talking about, the importance of diversity, the importance of having both men and women in the workplace. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So, due to some technical difficulties, namely me not knowing how to work a camera, the rest of the interview was not captured on tape, but Rhonda was so kind to provide us with some final thoughts that she really wanted to leave you with. So we're going to share those in a second. But before we finish, I do want to say, look, this is the first interview in this series I'm starting. I greatly appreciate you getting this far into the interview, and I hope you enjoyed it. And like I'm always asking you to do, I want to get better. So please leave me comments in the comment section. What would you have liked me to ask? How could things have gone better? What would have helped you learn more from this interview? Again, please leave your comments, share your thoughts with me. And I greatly appreciate it. So now, once you click that like and subscribe button, you will see the final thought that Rhonda wanted to share with you. Now, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, here's Rhonda.
As a final piece of advice, I encourage you to be unconventional, be courageous, be bold, and most of all, support one another. You can lead from where you are. At any point in your career, just do your best and become a leader.